Hello everyone and welcome to another Horrific Chat. In this segment we speak to independent creators to discuss their inspirations, aspirations and journey into horror. Tonight I'm joined by Poul Holmelund and Jonas Morian, members of the Northern Lights and Darkness, a publishing group for tabletop role-playing game scenarios. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me. Jonas, welcome for the first time, and Paul, welcome back. Great to have you on board.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us.
Always a pleasure. As I said, we just... I think we're supposed to try and act professionally, but nah, I don't do that.
I do that at work.
Yeah, that's it. That's a day job. This is fun, you know. But you've been really busy since last time we spoke. Northern Lights and Darkness really catching on, and we've got scenarios published now, and awards being won as well.
Sorry?
Almost won.
Awards.
Oh, yeah, well...
Sorry, I have a little bit of a... I think the summer hay fever's kicked in here, so I do apologise. I'm a bit snuffy on it.
Yeah, we actually got a silver award in the Phoenix Award. That's the biggest RPG... the biggest Swedish RPG award thingy. So yeah, we got a silver for the first collection of scenarios from all over Scandinavia, and we are very happy and very proud for that.
Extremely proud.
Yeah,
especially this is your first outing too, isn't it? As a group, a collective,
it is.
And publishing.
Yes, it was. And considering the fact that Free League basically swept everything, I think taking silver is
I might be a little bit biased. I like Free League. I'll have to admit. They do write some good games, and they've
I'm sure. I mean, that, no doubt about that. I mean, we are strictly hobbyists. So I mean, being able to achieve a silver for something that's community content written by well, actually amateurs. I mean, we have very different day jobs. I mean, I've published some scenarios before. Many in this group had never published anything. They just GM'd or being keepers at various games. So this was the first time actually writing it down. It was very impressive and great honor to be recognized.
So how do you get on the radar for these? Because I know there's award ceremonies and they're almost like bought and paid for, if that makes sense, by the corporates, and then really don't mean anything. So
we spam a lot.
Yeah, we do.
No, it sounds horrible when you say it like that, but I use Facebook and Reddit and Discord, and whenever we have a new scenario out from anybody in the group, I'll pop in and basically say we have the scenario out, and we would be honored if you'd like to buy it and play it, and this is what it's about, and then we do it every time something comes up. If we get if we get to a copper sales level, or if something new happens, or if a review pops up somewhere, then I spread the word, and gradually people start noticing and talking about it and buying the scenarios. And I think that's what happened. And we've been
ironically, I work with public relations as my day job, but it was actually Paul has been the driving force on marketing from day one. You're the one who inspired us to get a Facebook group, public Facebook group, and
it just seemed natural.
Yeah, I mean, and it made a lot of difference, I would say. And you've also been pushing hard for us to get involved in various other medias like Discord and Reddit and so on. And yeah, it's been great.
I have to be honest here.
You can't sit back. You have to be proactive.
Hate Discord.
Sorry, I missed that.
I have to be honest here. I'm very active on Discord, but I hate it. I think it's, I'm very old-fashioned, and I like the good old forums where, you create a thread and people reply in that, and then when you have something else you want to talk about, you create a new thread. and you can search very easily, and you can find your thoughts, and you can, resume a conversation. Discord, nah, not so much.
It's chaos.
Just one long stream that gradually changes, and finding something old in it is very hit and miss. But it's super important for PR work, and there are a lot of people that are super active in the Discord community. So it's one of the places you have to be seen. But to be honest, I really don't love the forum type.
No, I'm not I do, like I said, I do it. It's one of those things. If you're a content creator of whatever medium, you have to be on a lot of the platforms. And a lot of the platforms, personally, I wouldn't use myself if it wasn't for the podcast. So I understand that. It is a bit of a nightmare, just because you're spending more time publishing, promotion, posting than actually just getting down to the bare bones of making what you make. But one thing about Discord, especially with the TTRPG community, I've noticed that is the nexus. That is the place where they all gather. It is, if you see a lot of the channels, for example, Brotherhood of the Dice, Infinite Monkey Tales, very active. Like, it's daily, continuous. It never stops.
Yeah. One of the wonders of modern media and social content is you are always available.
Yeah, double-edged sword at the end of the day.
It is.
It's useful, but at the same time, it can. I think you have to manage it. You don't let it take over you. That's the worst thing you can do. It's one thing I've had to learn is don't let it run you. You run it. That's
hopefully the way it should be.
I was severely hooked on Twitter back in the day when it was still semi-rational kind of forum, but then a madman took over, and it's.
I've never really been into. I used Twitter, back in the day to stay in touch with a couple of authors and try to win books and stuff like that. But as a conversation forum, it never really worked for me. So I bowed out quite quickly, and I kept the account but never used it. And then at some point you had to they reinstated that you have to pay to have a 2ID verification.
Yeah.
And I thought, nope, that's just basic security. I'm not paying for that. So I deleted my account right there.
Yeah. I don't think it's changed. Like, it was full of loonies before, and it's full of loonies now. It's just that sort of platform. People don't talk; they shout at each other, and I'm just like, no.
I think when Twitter was, now we're really getting off on a tangent here, but
very much.
That's we welcome tangents in this.
Right. When Twitter was at its best, if that's a word, I would say that there were very different kind of sort of spheres, sort of intermingling, but sort of not. I was very much into like the Swedish political debate and PR world, and that was fun and useful, and I made a lot of great connections there and learned a lot, and I was able to work actively in pushing messages out that way. But yeah, since then it's took quite a few turns for the worse. But I think that you're right in some sense that there was always those loonies sort of making life miserable for everyone.
Yeah,
you have that in all the social medias, so it's not exclusive to Twitter.
Oh no, it's you. If you have an avatar instead of your face and can hide behind a username rather than your own name, you've got carte blanche to just be an idiot. It's the way of the world. It's just human nature.
Yeah, I love that old one. On the internet, nobody knows you're a dog. I don't remember what comic it was from, but it's super, super old, and it's just it hits the nose, the nail, the hammer on the nail.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't see the purpose of spending your life like that. There's people that create fake accounts and they go into people they don't like, We've seen it in horror, actually, and there's an incident come up recently with one of my co-hosts where people are getting into horror groups and then demanding that it be sanitized and changed and not be horror anymore.
Oh, interesting.
That makes no sense.
And it's ridiculous. So it doesn't matter what even, I don't like talking about politics, but it doesn't matter what the political spectrum is. It always ends up as, can we pick on the nerds? Yes, let's pick on the nerds. It never changes.
Well,
And it's like, give us a break.
And I suppose every subculture, every niche of interest have their own definitions of the nerds. So, yeah.
Yeah, and but there's more commonality. I think that's why you can have, and they don't like that. They never like the fact that we can have different people with different opinions in different parts of the world. But that just obsession with whatever it is we enjoy, like TTRPGs, with the Cthulhu mythos, with horror, with playing games. They don't get it. They don't get that people can set aside their real life, come together for the purpose of spending time with each other and actually really get involved. And if there's ever a message to be sent out there, I think we do it, because we explore the dark side of things. We sort of think, what happens when it all goes wrong? What does that look like? And that can be silly cultists calling up things they shouldn't do, or just political things going crazy, or an ideology just going too far. In horror, we always looked at that because that's part of the fun of, let's explore that. Okay, this is absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
And you can revel in it, but go, yeah, this is why we're exploring this, because we don't want to be there. And other folks don't get it. They don't get the mindset.
Well, it's a weird hobby.
I mean, of course, it could come off as cynical that then when you like see news coverage of a horrible train accident or a cave-in or something like that, and you go, huh, that's a scenario. I think I can do something about this. I can see how that could come across as a bit cynical, but yeah, still.
But it's also a safety outlet. I'm confronted with that in my work. I work as a
Sure.
correctional officer, and we come across of a lot of nasty stuff in our work. And dark humor is a safety outlet for us, and it's the same in tabletop role-playing games. Sometimes you can use scenarios to deal with things at a distance. So it's not really cynicism, but I can understand why people would look at it and think it's cynical to use it as basis for a game. But for us, it's a safety outlet. It's a safe way to talk about and handle things that are not safe in real life.
Yeah, and that's it. It's the exploration of it. You know what it looks like. So therefore, you don't feel the need to indulge personally. That's the catharsis. You just, okay, here's this horrible thing that's happened. Okay, what if there was a sinister thing behind it that made it? Let's explore that, and let's go right up to the event. And
so you're saying that blood sacrifices are not necessary to perform in real life?
No, you might want to get the bleach out and just mop the floor, just in case somebody comes knocking. It gets frowned on.
Yeah.
Also, bloodstains are horrible to get out of the carpet.
Oh God!
Why do you think I wear this one? It's red.
Ah, clever.
Yeah,
I'm colorblind. I thought this was red. No?
Ah. Well, there are splotches of red on it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's all cool. No, it's people don't get that sense of humor, but that's what makes us different.
Nerds do.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And we're all different. We can have opinions and things. We have different life experiences, but we all get that sort of irreverence. We just laugh at it. We'll laugh in the face of darkness and we embrace it and we go about our lives. We just have that moment of, should it be 3-4 hours of like crude jokes and just dark humor and embracing death ourselves. Like, one thing about Call of Cthulhu is that your character is doomed.
Yes.
Because you're either going to die, or if you survive, you're going to be driven absolutely insane. And the idea of a long campaign of a Call of Cthulhu character, it just doesn't happen, because the more you're in this world, your character's just going to degrade and get worse and worse.
That's one of the fun things when you take somebody who has been used to playing heroic fantasy like Dungeons and Dragons and introduce them to Call of Cthulhu for the first time, getting them to understand that you are maybe one of the main characters, but you are so absolutely not the hero. You're not getting out of this either alive or sane.
Yeah, and I think people then get it. They just embrace that, and it is cathartic. I know you used that word a couple of times, but it is that sort of release. It really is good for you.
Yeah, I think so, and it's fun.
Yeah,
I mean,
I totally agree. For me personally, I have always really enjoyed the investigator creation phase of the game, coming up with ideas for new characters and like putting them together with dice rolls and stats and what have you. But doing that in Call of Cthulhu, you're also painfully aware that, okay, I'm sort of investing now in a character that I think this is a great idea. This could be terrific to play. And he might be dead, or she might be dead, or insane in 2 turns. So
in a relatively short amount of time.
True.
Years and years and years ago, this is back in high school. We came together and were supposed to play the Horror on the Orient Express. And I won't spoil anything, but there's a scene very early in the scenario. And I mean, it's like within 10 minutes of the scenario start, where if you fail a series of dice rolls, and it's a very small number, then you basically die. And we had an entire group wipe at that point. And our keeper just looked down and said, okay, this can't be right. And he, read, and then he read some more. And then, okay, we're going to have to change something here. You didn't die. You just wake up and lose some sanity and stuff, because that's just insane. But we woke up from a horrible dream, and then the scenario started. And none of us expected. That was one of my first experiences with the Call of Cthulhu game. And I thought to myself, damn, I really need to spend less time on background stories and more time on building a second or third character to have ready for the play sessions.
Yeah. But is there not I think the Buddhists have an idea. The sand drawings on the floor.
Yeah.
They get the different colored sand, and they'll spend hours on it, and then at the end they sweep it up, and it's that whole idea of letting go, which D&D players, for example, don't get. And if you notice with a lot of, like, I always say there are D&D players and there are role players who play D&D. You know what I mean? The hardcore D&D players are very aggressive because they can't let go. There's that bit more antagonism in their games. If somebody doesn't know a rule off the top of their head for a spell at a particular encounter, they will fall out over it.
Interesting.
Where I find with Call of Cthulhu, you just laugh. You're just like, I'm dead. Oh God, that was terrible.
And then you roll something crazy, and then you don't die anyway, and it's just, oh, I didn't die.
Yeah, but what happens to you is worse. Like I survived. Yeah. My character, there was only 2 characters survived, Tatters of the King, and I ended up becoming the harbinger of Hastur,
wow.
doomed to walk the earth, and became like a spectral serial killer, to herald his arrival. I was like, death would have been better.
Sometimes things change for the worse. One of the things I really enjoy about listening to some of the podcasts that have real play of different scenarios is seeing when their characters just spiral down into insanity and slowly gets to the point where the keeper has to take it over and now becomes a cultist. That just describes the epitome of Call of Cthulhu, that sometimes the people that are your closest friends and allies can all of a sudden become your adversaries because they learn too much and understand too much, and no, you don't understand. but this is the right course of action. You have to help me now. And then they become the enemy.
I love that's actually one of my favorite dice rolls is when you've got a bout of madness and you have to roll intelligence and you want to feel that roll because you don't want to understand what's going on.
Right, right.
And that's the role you don't want to succeed because it's the idea of the full gravitas of everything happening before you comes out and you fully understand what's happening. And then that's it. You're done.
And then you can either try to explain everybody else and they'll decide you're insane, or you can bottle it up and you'll be going insane. So
we had a brilliant one. We had a character and there was this entity. It was basically like an acid bath. It was a jelly sort of based, and basically you went near it, you got dissolved. So of course they fail their sanity roll, and they rolled, and of course they come up with you charge and you instant rage. You charge at the beast. That was it. You know, you had absolutely no control over it, and that's like life. You know, it's sometimes just craziness happens. You have no control over it, and I think the game helps you deal with the world. That you can do all you can. But the world, you know, the universe just is so random and events can unfold that you have no control over. And I think a lot of people now don't understand that.
That's like being a game master or keeper. Players will do the things you don't anticipate. You know, you can prepare and then you can prepare for 3 or 6 or 8 different outcomes. And then one of the players will say, oh, but how about if we do? And then you just inwardly sighs and shakes your head and thinks, oh, for fuck's sake. Why would you do that? I didn't prepare for that.
What the hell you did?
That's one of I think the biggest challenges for all of us when we actually write scenarios for sale.
For sure.
That you sort of need to. I mean, you can't cover all your bases. That's just impossible, as Paul pointed out, because players will always do unpredictable things, and that's fine. But you need to sort of cover as much as possible to give the keeper the tools to handle different various random events or random acts of. Random acts of planning from the player's part.
Yeah,
and basically you're saying, what would sane people do? Yeah. And then what would role players do, and what would my group do? And once you've covered that, you have a good basis, and then somebody else's group will do something stupid or silly.
That's
fun.
But that's all part of the fun. I think we get it. We get that that's part of the enjoyment.
Yeah, it is.
And I hope, Jacob, that's answered your question about, you know, the fascination with the system. It's not paint by numbers. You can't play Call of Cthulhu that way.
No. One of the fascinating things is that it's all decided by dice. That's not specific to Call of Cthulhu, but some tiny part of Call of Cthulhu is extremely guided by dice, and that's the sanity system and the Cthulhu Mythos system. And I have an example from our Mask of Nyarlathotep campaign, where I have a player who on average has absolutely horrible sucky dice luck. You know, it's not you, but
no, but
he can't find his weapon at the right time. He can't spot the dark young standing right in front of him. He can't find clues in the library. Everything basically fails on ordinary basis. But when shit really hits the fan and he tries to use Cthulhu Mythos to get him out of trouble, he rolls extreme successes. And if I wasn't at the table and seeing the dice roll, I would get suspicious because it happens so often. And he's been gradually going up and up and up in Cthulhu Mythos and down and down and down in insanity. And it's just a standing joke that when everything comes down to it, and it has to do about, you know, the horror and mind-shaking entities, Rune will succeed in the dice roll, and something wacky will happen, and then it's up to me to try to, you know, come up with an explanation on how and why stuff
Yep. Actually, one of the questions I had is about as a role-playing creator, what's one of the main differences between that and being a traditional storyteller? And I think you've partially answered the question there. I think you need to deal with the randomness. Would I be right? That
yeah.
A storyteller
Definitely.
has a start and a finish, and they're very linear. But with TTRPGs, you don't have that luxury because.
And also, as a storyteller, what you can, the only kind of interaction you might get is from your audience. If you're like reading out a story, especially for kids, they might ask, "Oh, but then what happened?" Or "Why did you do that?" And you might elaborate on that, but they never ask you to, but I think the protagonist should go that way instead. That's rarely happens when you read a story, but in RPGs that happens all the time.
And that's supposed to happen. That's the wonder.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it really put the keeper sort of on the spot. I had the pleasure of being the sort of proofreader and editor for all the scenarios that we have put out so far under the.
And we appreciate it so much.
Thank you. And in one of those, I won't mention which because this might be spoiler territory, but there was this scenario where the writer had actually play tested this a couple of times, and it was now for the first time putting it on paper and producing it, and asked me to have a read through, and I did, and I pointed out some things, and at one point in the story, where the investigators are sort of stranded and need to call for assistance, but they are unable to do so. I asked, how about if they just put the cabin on fire?
Oh, I know which scenario.
The writer just looked at me and said, "This has never come up before. No one has ever thought of this. Why did you ask this question?"
What would we do? What would our players do? And what would somebody else's group do?
And that's I love it.
My group would do that in a heartbeat. If there's a place being able to set on fire, let's set it on fire.
Why not?
I've only I need to up my game in terms of running games, but I ran the Lightless Beacon on this channel, and that's what the player did. He set fire to the lighthouse, and it worked. And I'm just like, that's brilliant. Everyone else is like thinking, let's batten down doors, let's hold in. And he's like, nah, do you know what? I'm pulling up the sofas, setting fire, and that'll double as a beacon and keeping me safe if I don't burn to death in the top of the lighthouse.
I did it I've been a fire starter once. It was in a Warhammer Fantasy roleplay campaign, and we were supposed to go into a very tall tower that has been abandoned for years. And I came up with the idea that we'll just use a torch to burn away all of the cobwebs because there might be giant spiders or something. So I torched the spider webs, and then the old goblins also caught fire. That was not planned. And then our game master just said, "Oh fuck! What did you just do?" And then it basically went up in flames, and we ran out of the tower. And then a few minutes later, we hear this horrible giant crash as a Chaos Warrior lands because basically everything and all of the structures inside the tower has burned up, and he crashes to the ground. And it was a Chaos Warrior of Nurgle, which are insanely tough.
Mm-hmm.
And he stumbles out with armor smoking, and then it was supposed to be a more or less impossible fight for us to win. But the game master just ruled that crashing down through 3 storages and being burned on the way down cost him virtually all his health, so it became trivial in the fight. And then after, he just said, "Why did you have to go and set stuff ablaze?" I said, "I didn't plan to. I just wanted to remove the cobwebs."
But that's the absolute chaos and the randomness of the game, and then that's when you know you've got it's a good collaboration. I think the keeper and the players will work together. It's not a competition, and if you just reward people for being inventive, as long as they're not deliberately trying to derail the game. And
I'm fortunate that I have a group of players that, you know, we're here to tell a story together and have fun, and the fun comes from the chaos.
Yep. It was like Tuesday we were playing Destroyer of Worlds Alien RPG.
Yeah.
And our entire group nearly got wiped out by a sentry gun.
Whoops.
Because we were trying something and time was running short. We needed to get into the fort. And if it wasn't for Phil checking the rules again and the dice roll, that would have been it. Game over. And to be honest, because of the way our groups had already come out about 5 war crimes during this campaign.
Whoops.
And I think it would have been just fitting for us to end in that ridiculous fashion. None of us were feeling, you know, we were like, oh no, we're finished, but wow, this would be brilliant. And I think when you play those, you know, I think the more games you play and the various systems, and you're not just tied to one, I think that gives you that sort of mindset of, yeah, that was absolutely crazy, but it was funny, and we'll talk about it. You know, you always talk about the random things that happen. I don't think anybody talks about it by the numbers, step 1, step 2, oh, we succeeded. Nobody ever talks about those games.
No, it's you know, the crazy solutions and the near misses. That's the most fun, and sometimes death.
Yep.
But I'm a bit. I'm very sort of faithful to Call of Cthulhu. I don't really dabble in any other games or systems, and also, which is I understand is a bit unusual for scenario writers. I'm usually not the keeper. I have been playing with the same keeper now for I think 30 years, and so yeah. Our group has changed somewhat, quite a lot actually through the years. But he's been the mainstay. Yeah, the content, and we have played basically always Call of Cthulhu through all these years. And I think I've been a keeper in a Swedish RPG called Drakar Demoner, which is Dragonbane in English, I think.
It is.
For like a couple of times, but yeah, it's almost always Call of Cthulhu. So I'm very single-minded into that system. But that system has changed quite a lot during these 30 years. So it's not really the same as it was, but that's fine. I like the evolution of it.
It's the same stories. The system has just changed.
Yeah, true. So, well, I think the stories has got better. The stories, the scenarios, the adventures back then were
absolutely. But it's still the same world and still the same mythos, creatures, and everything. But yes, the quality of the written scenarios has improved a lot. And I was a player in a scenario a while back where you could really see that this was, you know, a scenario from the 80s, and it basically, you know, it had all the I's dotted and all the T crossed in the way you would expect it to. And then, of course, we did something unexpected that wasn't taken into account in the scenario. Now, our poor keeper had to improvise a lot on the spot, which made the scenario more fun. And basically,
as
the
long as it's
scenario
not
expected you to talk to two very specific NPCs, and we avoided them like the plague because we thought they were evil. They were. But basically everything was hinged around you contacting them and letting them in on the loop that you were investigating the shenanigans they were doing, and we just ignored those two because no, those are baddies. We're not going near them. And poor Jacob had to improvise a lot.
Just come on. So talking about scenarios, the Art of Hygge was awarded the Electrum bestsellers.
Yeah, and I think thank you. I think it's amazing that a scenario that virtually nobody can pronounce has been able to sell copies. And I did not think it would be an issue when I wrote it, but I've heard a lot of different ways of pronouncing Hygge.
Well, I asked you,
you just butchered it as well.
Yep,
and I would probably butcher something that Jonas puts out in Swedish, but it's fun. But yes, it hit Electron and got into print on demand.
So what's that process like? How does that happen?
You get
because
lucky.
I think when we think of awards, we think people have an agent, and the agent approaches the awards company and they hand over some money, and that's kind of the way they work in a lot of their industry that nobody cares about. But it seems to be within this world, it's very organic.
Well, there's a lot to it, but basically, you create your own sort of cheerleaders. You find somebody who likes your scenario, then you get them to play it and maybe being a keeper on it, and then they will talk about it, and then slowly it will create ripples. And I was extremely lucky that the cover for Art of Hygge was kick-ass. I know it is. It's not just me who think it was great. We've had people approach us, and Chaosium may actually choose the cover as part of their background on their Facebook page for a short while. So that cover hit something, and that generated fans of the scenario just because of Ken Roblin's art. Give me a second.
Yeah. Like I said, it's just interesting, these awards, how they happen, and
it looks amazing.
Yep.
I think you can see it here. I mean, it's got everything. There's fire and there's tits, so it sells. And that's
horns.
Demons
and horns, but that's very simplified. But it's a kick-ass cover. Ken did absolutely amazing with the art. And then it's sold, and you ask how the process goes for awards. It's relatively simple on Drive-Thru RPG because it's bound up on a number of sales. So if you sell 51 copies, you're copper. If you sell 101 copies, you're silver. And if you reach 251, you become Electrum. And then there are 500 for gold, 1,001 for platinum, I think. And I don't know the numbers after that, but there are more. And the way it works on Drive-Thru is that all of these community programs, Chaosium has the Miskatonic repository, and they have the agreement that if you reach Electrum, you can apply to have it put into print on demand, and more often than not, they will approve it. And that's what happened for me. And I basically wrote Nick and said, I've been lucky enough to get to this level. What do I do from here? And then Nick said, I asked Mike O'Brien, and I just did. And Mike O'Brien said yes. So now let's begin the work of actually putting it into print. We have to change the files and make them printer ready. Do you know how to do that? No, I don't. And at that point, I was expecting to have to find somebody and pay them to do it. And then Nick Broke from Chaosium said, that's not an issue. I can do it for you. Okay. And I did not expect an employee from Chaosium to offer to use his time to do that. And I've since learned that he does that for basically everybody that reached this level. Then he offers, if they don't know it or don't have somebody to do it for them, then he will try to prepare the files ready for print for them, which is, above and beyond what you would expect of somebody from Chaosium.
Honestly, if we use the whole Wizards of the Coast debacle with the OGL, I think a lot of other companies, Chaosium and Free League in particular, just went, "What? You're giving us your fans? Thank you very much. What? We just have to treat them with respect. We just have to be nice. Oh, that's so hard. How can I possibly do this?" And
it's very, very sad, but also kind of fun. There's basically one universal law, and that's Wheaton's law: don't be a dick. Wizards of the Coast doesn't quite get that, and a lot of of the other beloved companies gets it. Treat your fan base and your players like a treasure and like human beings, and they will give you love and loyalty back. Treat them like a meal ticket, and you will lose them. And I think,
but being nice to fans is one thing. What you're actually describing is, I think, as you said, that's above and beyond. That's like a whole different
support. They're actually supporting their fans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's
creators,
amazing.
It's not just to be you're a creator, you're helping to keep the game alive. Where Wizards of the Coast completely missed that point, that every scenario always leads back to a purchase of the rulebook. It always leads back to another player getting involved. It always leads back to people keeping the brand alive, and they just completely, just arrogance. Completely missed the point.
I don't think it's so much as arrogance as I think they have lawyers and people who are not connected to the hobby part. And for them, it's spreadsheets and rules and regulations. And then they present it to the board, who says, we have to, we have to generate revenue, and we have shareholders that we have to keep happy. So if the legal department says we have to do this, we better do it. And then the company finds out that there's a huge backlash from their fan base afterwards. But I don't really,
I don't want to,
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Jonas, go ahead.
I don't want to get political about this, but I mean the copyright laws and that whole bag is complicated, to say the least. I think for everyone who wants to write a Call of Cthulhu scenario and publish it on a Miskatonic repository, will find out that you can use this entity from H.P. Lovecraft and perhaps this entity from another writer, but these ones, even though they are published in the rulebook and even though they are published in various different scenarios, you can't go anywhere near them. You can't even mention them. That sort of, for me, sort of pinpoints the absolute minefield that is the copyright laws. And I think that's partly why Wizards of the Coast and other companies like them are acting the way they are. I mean, they're not necessarily dicks. They might be that as well, but they're also sort of have to follow a bunch of regulations and very anxious lawyers who are saying that, you can't get anywhere near this IP. So
well, they're owned by Hasbro, and Hasbro, their biggest failure was when they tanked their own product, Masters Universe, because the men's toy department and the women's toy department couldn't work together, and they fought with each other, and they completely tanked their brand. And that mentality is never good. When the company's fighting with itself, what chance does anyone else have? But
that's horrible.
I think Paul.
We did get one glorious film with a Swedish He-Man. You need to remember that.
Oh God, I remember seeing that in the theaters.
Yes, I remember. I just scratching my head, going, "What is this? What on earth am I watching?"
Yeah, well.
Lundgren's career should have ended there.
Sorry?
I said Dolph Lundgren's career should have ended there.
He also played the Punisher at one point. I mean, the man's,
he did. Also horribly.
Yeah, true.
Do you know what? The thing is, though, I think Dolph Lundgren just takes the punch. Like, look at some of the B movies. He's been in some of the biggest movies in existence, but he's also been in some like really cheesy horror B movies. Like that one, he was a vampire hunter, and like there was a whole series of those. And you know,
would it be fair to say that he was the '80s version of Cage?
You know what? You could make that argument.
I mean, you could basically take any genre in the '80s and Dolph Lundgren showed up.
Nick Cage is actually an actor.
One more time, please.
Nick Cage is actually an actor. That's one piece of difference.
True that, but he was in, he's been in everything, and Dolph Lundgren more or less did the same thing in the '80s, and mostly action, of course, but he also had some serious roles that somehow turned into not so serious roles because it was Dolph Lundgren. So, yeah.
But once again, I think when someone has a particular attitude, you forgive a lot, don't you? Well, I still can't forgive Sylvester Stallone for what he did to Judge Dredd. I still hold resentment and hatred for that. That offended me like nobody's business.
Yeah, but and
Carl Urban did it.
I will basically forgive him for anything because I loved him in Rocky IV.
Yeah, that was true. He was a frightening character. Like, you remember, I was quite young when I went to see that in the cinema. I was like, it was actually like frightened of his character. He was so intense, and he
was perfect for that role.
Funny thing about Dolph Lundgren is he's actually like genius level intellect. He's got like an IQ of 180. He's a doctor. I mean, he's
he should be.
He's probably too intelligent to be an actor. That's the issue.
But, once again, down to a sort of irreverence. I don't think he takes himself too seriously, and then and I think it's the same. I think we can relate that to this hobby and the creation. If you don't take yourself too seriously, but you want to do the best with what you can, people will follow you and they'll support you.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth in that. I think growing up, we were nerds, and nerds were picked on, and we learned to laugh at our own deficiencies, and part of it is a way of coping, but it's also an ability to see things from different angles, and the fact, if you can laugh at yourself, you can laugh at basically anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we are great at that. And when you can laugh at yourself, you can also put yourself in other people's shoes and positions, and I think it gives us some sort of empathy and ability to identify with other nerds, and that's just my pocket philosophy.
No, and you're right, and that's one thing. I'm glad I had taken a break from role playing myself, and it's been 2 years. I'm back into it again, and honestly, the last 2 years have just flown in, and it's those moments of just an eclectic bunch of individuals. We're all different. We're all odd little characters in our own way.
Absolutely.
But we can put that by the door or use it in the game, and we all come out feeling better.
Yeah.
And that's it. And I think it does spark an envy. That's why our hobbies are being under attack by the same people that would have picked on us at school, because there's a jealousy there. They don't like the fact that we don't take them. If we don't take ourselves seriously, then we're not going to take them seriously. And I think there's this strange move to come in, and like I said, one of our friends, she got attacked there just for having an interview because she's writing a biography for a film director, and tried to cancel her. And it's like, why would you do that? And you realize it's just down to just pettiness, that because you don't have that mindset of being able to laugh at yourself, and you think that everyone must take you seriously all the time.
That must be horrible.
That I couldn't imagine for the life of me living like that. That would be hell.
Yeah.
But here's another question there. So obviously, the Art of Hygge, you're now writing the sequel.
Oh, I have written it, and it's been published.
It's published. Oh, that's right. It's out. Sorry, my apologies.
Published. And
that's right, because that's what we're all. Sorry, I had to change all my notes because
that's cool.
It was meant to be 1-on-1, and I just deleted all my notes and then started again because I'm like, oh right, I have to completely change the conversation now to get everybody involved. Cool. But yeah, sorry, that's published.
It was published at the end of May.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Lost in Cremation, which is a wordplay on Lost in Translation. And yes, it's a sequel to, and I won't give out any spoilers, but people have asked me, how can you write a sequel to the Art of Hygge? And that was actually quite easy. What was the question again?
What are the? I think the answer is in the title somewhat. They are lost in cremation. So what happens after that?
Yeah. Yes, there were unique challenges. And the funny thing is, the biggest challenge I had in making the sequel was actually that I fucked up. The Art of Hygge has 4 pre-generated characters. And for some stupid reason, I decided as I wrote the scenario that I wanted to create 5 pre-generated characters for the sequel. And it felt right when I started writing the scenario, but the further I got into it, the more hampered I was by the 5th character. And everybody has their different process in writing, but the thing I usually do is that I create my pre-generated characters almost in the beginning, because it's the work I enjoy the least. And it's kind of ironic because it's extremely fun for me to create player characters for myself, but creating pre-generated characters is a chore. It's not as enjoyable for me to create characters for others as it is for myself. The thing I enjoy is creating the story and the challenges. And writing the sequel, basically, the 5th character meant that I had to rewrite parts all the time, and I was starting to think maybe I should write a 5th character for the Art of Hygge and then put back in and upload in the scenario for people so they can play it if they have a group of 5 players. And it basically took me 4 or 5 months before one day I just sat down and then I deleted the character and I commissioned the art for his mugshot and everything, and then I just deleted it entirely, and it felt like somebody lifted a weight off my shoulder, and it was like, and then I could write again. Mm-hmm. And I basically scraped everything, and then I started writing again, and it just flowed from there. So the biggest and unique challenge for me was actually that I made a character too much, and I was, in retrospect, extremely surprised by the fact that just having a character too many could cause me more problems than having one too few would have.
I didn't know about this, Paul. Could you say something about what was the problem? What was he like, too overpowered or had a strange background?
The fun thing is I actually liked the character, and he wasn't. The problem was that he was the 5th wheel. He was right. He was unnecessary, and he was complicating the fact that I had a first scenario with 4 players, and if you wanted to play the scenario, I've written it so you can play it as a standalone scenario. Mm-hmm. You don't have to play the Art of Hygge to play this one, but if you've played the first scenario and want to play the sequel, you would either have to invite somebody in who hadn't played the first scenario, or you would have to play the first scenario with 5 characters to have some sort of continuity in the group, and that's what messed it up for me. So I kept writing or trying to write scenes that fit the 5th person, and it's just messed me up. And then I started working on a pre-generated character more for the Art of Hygge that I could upload into the scenario files on drive-through, and it just kept holding me back somehow. And then, I think I could be remembering wrong, but I think I wrote to you, or maybe it was to one of my other friends, that I finally, pulled the trigger on something I should have done a month ago, and that just clicked into it. Fit, it felt like there was a puzzle piece too much, too many, and then when I removed it, I could put the puzzle together.
Interesting.
Yeah,
but sometimes that's a worthwhile process to go through.
Yeah, and
I mean,
Jonas said it earlier on. We are happy amateurs. We're happy amateurs, and I'm learning this as I go. And the way I used to write scenarios was that I had a dirty little notebook, and I wrote down small phrases and ideas and connected scenes with dots, and writing it so other people can read it and actually play it is something entirely different. And I'm learning that process. And once again, I owe a debt of gratitude to Jonas for editing. My forte is not spelling and grammar at all. Fortunately, Jonas is great at that, so he catches all of the mistakes.
Oh, fantastic, but that's teamwork at the end of the day. Yeah, that's.
But not in football.
True.
So now that the Art of Hygge's been out there and the 7 scenarios I've got, I don't read scenarios in case I'm going to play them. That's just my thing because I don't want to spoil for myself.
Makes sense.
So yeah, I've everything either on a shelf or in a hard drive, and I'm like, no, can't read that yet. I like to read the scenario after I've played. Then I can go, oh right, missed that bit, that's what was going on. But what's the feedback from people who maybe have not been introduced to Scandinavian folklore? Has there been any comments on that? The fact that they're not in Boston anymore, in 1930s America, or the sort of general expectation from a Cthulhu game?
I think Paul actually did us all a favor the other day when you went online on Facebook, I think, and sort of encouraged people to write reviews and feedback on the scenarios that we published, because
I can't take all of the credit for that. I was actually inspired by Jade Griffith, who did it a couple of months back. Okay. And I thought that was a great idea. And then a few months later, I thought, I'm going to expand on that. And she said, I've just been giving out reviews for scenarios I read or played and liked. And I thought, I'm going to continue that trend, and then, try to inspire people to do it. Because one of the big issues we have as writers is there's surprisingly little feedback.
Yeah, I was getting to that.
Sorry, so, I'll shut up.
Now, to answer your question, Colin, I really don't know. I think that our scenarios are appreciated, judging by their sales, especially for Paul, but the other ones as well. But as far as feedback goes, I don't know. I really hope that people appreciate our sort of special brand of Scandi horror mixed with Cthulhu mythos, but I really don't know. I hope it's popular. I hope there are wanting more, because we have quite a few stories lurking around wanting to be told. But
we have one coming out soon, and you've published another scenario as well.
I did. second outing in the Northern Lights and Darkness isn't a sequel to my first. My first was called The Tunnel People. It was about happenings in the Stockholm subway system. The new one is called The Calling of the Blood. It's not related at all. It's more, I won't get into it because it's a whole thing. But yeah, it's been. I think it's actually better than the first, but it hasn't got really that much traction yet. So I think we have to work on the public relations part.
The challenge is people don't buy games to just read.
True.
They're not stories. People buy them to play. And likes of our situation, we have a backlog, and also the summer is terrible. Yeah. People are off on holiday and they're back and forward and have life happens. One scenario we played that we were given was Helter Skelter, and it was only meant to be 3 sessions. It was 3 months later, we're still playing it, and we couldn't get the last session finished because just life happened to all of us, and we kept having to put it back.
It's a 1970s setting or
1960s. It was centered around the Manson family.
Right. Yeah. Cool.
And actually, Andy Hadley came back and went, "I've never thought it would be played that way." We played it. He's like, "I didn't think you would do it that way." I was like, he wasn't unhappy. He was just impressed at the randomness of players. But that's what I mean. I bought copies for Phil as well as myself. Because he's got them in his list. But by the time it could be 6 months before we get through to one, or it could be 4 weeks. It's just you can't gauge. One of the reasons now I'm in more of a partnership with Brotherhood of Dice is that maybe another night of the week I might get a few players together and we can run it in both channels. That it's not just relying on the Wednesday group or the Friday group. It's might give us a chance. But once again, we don't know. It's life. It's can we get the players together? Can we get the schedule and get started? And then until you're about to do it, you don't want to read the scenario, because if somebody else is going to run it, I don't want to read it because it'll spoil it.
Right.
So unless I'm actually going to commit, okay, I'm going to start on this date and run this scenario and put it together, it stays in the folder, never to be opened.
I have scenarios in 2 piles. I have the scenarios that I read because I want to be a game master on them at some point, and I have scenarios that I don't touch because I hope somebody else will game master them for me.
Yeah, it's a constant struggle, isn't it? And that's I think that's the uniqueness, and that's why it's difficult, I think, to get feedback, because that's what it's all based on. People actually they don't want to just, oh, that was nice. Yeah, that was nicely written. No, people want to get together around the table and experience it. Yeah. And we all have our forever keepers. We all have people that dabble in both. With people that are purely players, it's just getting and there's people with other games going on in other groups, and it's just getting the right group together at the right time. And especially now, but most of us play online and internationally, so it's picking that time that fits in the middle of all the time zones.
I've never actually played online with international community, and I've set up 2. I haven't picked the date yet, but I found 2 channels on Discord where I'm supposed to try and get a group together and actually be a keeper on the Art of Hygge for them. And it's a little bit nerve-wracking because trying to be a keeper online and having people interact on screen, it's gonna feel a lot different than when we're face to face.
Have you ever game mastered in English before?
Yes.
Okay.
So that helps.
I suppose it's like anything. I remember my first game I ran, and I've only ran a couple online, but I was nervous. It was The Haunting. It was a really basic scenario.
Well, it's a wonderful scenario. I love it.
Yeah, it's great.
But honestly, it ended up being, we have 4 sessions. It turned into 4 sessions because we went in tangents, and that was not, it was not expected. And there were, proper sessions, 2 to 3 hours. But I was nervous because you're always thinking in the back of your head, I don't want to mess up. I don't want to ruin it for people. I don't want people to enjoy this or to hate playing this game. And sure enough, we played it, and there was a few extra. I had to go off the cuff and put a few extra locations in before we went back to the Corbett house. But it ended up being really fun experience, and we all, because I was having fun running it once I got over the nerves and got used to this and the screens, and the players were having fun because they kept coming back and we finished the scenario. I was also a D&D player as well. I'd never played Call of Cthulhu. Got their eyes open to the world and enjoyed themselves. And that gave me a sense of pride of, not brought somebody over, but I've shown somebody that there's a different way to do things. Yeah. And you can have fun and it's not competitive. And you don't have to be a superhero. And yeah, it's great. But that's, I think once you try it, and if you have the right group, that people aren't trying to, and I don't think we have that here. You don't have people trying to outdo you as a player. The games, it's not a competitive thing.
It's not.
You get some people with strong personalities, but that's fine. But generally, people want the experience of the game.
Yeah,
and I think that helps overcome any nerves where you're not competing with everybody. You're not trying to beat them.
We help each other shine.
Mm-hmm. So I'd say try once, you might surprise yourself. And that will help you greatly. Honestly, the more people see the actual gameplay, and there's always
my biggest problem is that I can't really record it because I've designed it with a playlist, and you can of course play it without the playlist. But I think it really, I think it adds a lot of tension and mood to use the playlist. And that's what I've done in the physical play tests and gotten great feedback on. So I want to preferably play it with the playlist.
So you have joined Infinite Monkey Tales, haven't you? The Discord server?
One more time, please.
Have you joined Infinite Monkey Tales?
No, I don't think I'm on that one.
Right, because not everything has to be streamed. I certainly will. They don't always stream games. There's offline games too on the server. Yeah. So you don't have to worry about copyright because, it's private. Yeah. People can come and watch, but it's not being broadcast anywhere.
Yeah, but I have to do it that way if I want to do it with the music.
And if you're nervous about playing online, don't, maybe not streaming your first game would be the way to go.
I'm not planning on streaming at all. I don't think my rig is set up for that.
Right.
Then you shouldn't have a problem with the music.
There's the option, just use the online tools. Yeah. And that could be your next step, I think, but just get over the process of playing online because it's strange at the start, but you've actually more tools to use because you can use your separate screens and bring things up that necessarily, you don't have to have 5 copies of a letter to hand out or a photograph. You can just have it up and you don't have to print things.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about your screen falling over and everything getting revealed because, everything's off screen. So there are advantages. But yeah, definitely Infinite Monkey Tales, they're great, and they're always looking for keepers, GMs, always looking for players. And with Call of Cthulhu, there's always a hunger for new scenarios.
Yeah.
And that's, because people do, when I've lost count now, the number of scenarios I've played over the last couple of years, just boom, 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 you keep going and you don't even realize. But definitely a lot of fun. So just on that, I know Jonas partly answered this question, but are you intending to remain solely within the Call of Cthulhu system, or are you planning to branch out into other games, or maybe use Chaosium's universal role-playing mechanism, to create entirely new worlds? Is there a plan for that?
In Northern Light and Darkness?
Or even personally, you can maybe answer for both. Is there a plan to expand outside of the Call of Cthulhu game system?
As for 2 answers, personally, I'm happy with playing Call of Cthulhu. I don't really see. I don't really have a desire to branch out to other systems. I mean, some of them seems great, but I don't really. I get what I need from role playing by playing Call of Cthulhu.
Mm-hmm.
As for Northern Lights and Darkness, we have actually discussed to. I think this is no spoiler. To perhaps add a different time period, because so far the rule has been that all the scenarios that we write are sort of present day or modern day.
Mm-hmm.
We might change that. We might do some classic area, but I don't know. We haven't decided on anything yet, or perhaps Gaslight. I don't know.
Could be interesting. I'm staying solely within the Cthulhu, Call of Cthulhu game for writing scenarios. I don't really feel I have the time to dedicate myself to other systems. I dabble in Alien, and I play Delta Green, but I don't feel like writing scenarios for them. Mm-hmm. I have an idea for a Alien scenario, but I'm not planning on making it something published. So for me, it's just Miskatonic Repository and the Call of Cthulhu games. But I'm also working on scenarios that it doesn't quite fit the bill for the Northern Light and Darkness. I'm working on a scenario that's set in the 50s in the States. So I'm going to write other things. And Jonas and I have been talking about a joint venture we haven't really gotten very much into it. I've been working way too much. But we have, Jonas brought up a very good idea, and I think we could make something fun with that. It's going to be Nordic. It's going to be modern-ish. Mm-hmm. I won't spoil anything. Jonas, you want to say anything about it, or it's way early in the process?
Yeah, I don't think we can say too much about that. But I mean, I write other things as well, but also for Call of Cthulhu, but in Swedish. I publish quite a lot in Miskatonic Repository in Swedish as well for the Swedish edition of Call of Cthulhu. Those are exclusively set in the 1920s in Sweden. So I dabble in both time areas, but still very much into Call of Cthulhu.
Because actually, that's nicely leading on to my other question is, how much time do you split between the Northern Lights and Darkness project and your own personal projects? Is there any conflict, or are you finding a good balance?
As I'm not usually the keeper when we play Call of Cthulhu, but my forever role is that of the secretary. I'm the note keeper. Mm-hmm. So I take extensive notes from all our gaming sessions, and have all that at Google Docs, so that the keeper and the other players can edit and add their perspectives, or the keeper could sort of adjust something that I've misunderstood or got a name wrong or something like that. But that's massive. I mean, from an average scenario, not a campaign, mind you, an average scenario for Call of Cthulhu, like adventure, I could write up to 180 pages, detailed with pictures. So I spent too much time on that, especially given that we have at every given moment I think 3 different groups going on. So finding time between that and writing scenarios and doing all that life stuff,
it's a challenge.
Yeah.
I'm a bit luckier there. I don't have that much invested. I'm the keeper currently in a Mask of Nyarlathotep campaign, so I'm not writing for anybody else. I just have to read up on the scenario, and I've read it a couple of times on, and then I have to invent solutions for my players' crazy shenanigans. But that's part of the fun. So the only thing I really do writing wise is the scenarios, and I do that at the pace I'm able to. Work sometime. We are understaffed, so I have to do a lot of on average. I usually work about the week in overtime per month. Yeah, that's too much. So I write when I can and when the creative juice hit me. But the fact that I'm limiting myself to just one system absolutely makes it easier.
It doesn't take over you know what you want to do, and you can focus.
Yeah.
I suppose finally, most important, what can people expect from you in terms of projects in the very near future? What's next on the horizon that people can look out for?
The next thing is actually not from me or Jonas. We have a scenario coming out soonish by our Finnish player, I want to say.
Yeah.
He's Finnish, right?
Ruotsalainen.
Yeah, he's Finnish. He has a scenario that's very close to fruition.
I can say something about that actually without spoiling. He's actually writing, it's like a two-parter. One part is intended for the Northern Lights and Darkness, that's present time, present day, but it has like a prequel, something, set in the 1920s. So that's separate. So those are
a very great idea.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Those are playable independently or connected. So yeah, that's a great idea.
That's one thing coming up.
Excellent. Never stops then. People have lots to look forward to. As always, folks, links are in the description, so make sure you check these fine folks out. Lot to coming ahead, never stops, and especially if you're a Cthulhu player, here's a chance for more scenarios in a different environment. And if you're wanting to try something a little out of the box, give it a go. All good. And let us know as well if you've played on these scenarios. Make sure you let us know in the comments how it's went for you, because that's, as I've said, it's hard to get feedback just because of the nature of the gameplay. So if you have played any of the scenarios, please let us know how it's went, because I'm sure Paul and Jonas would love to hear from you.
Yeah, it helps a lot. And the only way we can improve if people tell us what they don't like, and of course also it's nice to know what people like, but any sort of feedback is great.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on. It's great to have you, and great to catch up again.
You.
And
thank you for inviting us. It's
exciting to hear what's ahead and things on the horizon. I'll be keeping my eyes out as well. And of course, let me know, and I can put it in the newsletter, etc., and just keep people up to date.
Will do.
But there you go, folks. Check these folks out, and just easy to say, until next time, keep updated with the channel, do the type of clicky things, and remember to keep it creepy, keep it horrific.